How Hannah for do? I pray Hannah for going about all right. You know, you like I looking up on top of your face. And when I look on top of your face, you make me heart so happy. I just said to you in Gullah, how are you doing? I hope you were doing all right. When I looked at your faces, I just thought about how happy I am deep down inside just to be here with you. My name is Gloria Barr Ford, and I'm a Gullah storyteller. Gullah is the mother tongue of the African people, a mixture of the various African dialects and the English language. When the slaves came over from Africa, they came from various tribes or communities, and they all had different dialects like Fandanga, Mende, Yoruba, Gullah, and they couldn't understand one another. And when they came to the various plantations where they had the masters or the owners that spoke English, that was another problem again. Here they were in a strange land, having to learn a new way to communicate. But I'm happy to be here with you on today. I brought along my Gullah Bible. It is called The Good News About Jesus Christ What Luke Write. It's the entire book of St. Luke from the Holy Bible, written in Gullah, and then it has the English translated on the side. So I'm going to read you a little something from it, okay? He said, treasure in heaven is like a shepherd and una me little flock. Una ain't many, but must don't fear, because God una papa, he glad for make una rule with himself. Una must sell everything what una have and must share the money, give to the people we ain't got nothing. That's how una gonna get God good thing for ourselves. Like pocketbook what don't never wear out, una gonna have una treasure in heaven when you going stand fever, cause thief ain't able for thief them there. And no more can destroy them. Must have una treasure in heaven, cause whenever una keep the thing what una treasure, that's what una going be. And in English it says, fear not, little flock, for it is your good pleasure to give you the kingdom. Sell that you have and give alms. Provide yourselves bags which wax not old, a treasure in the heavens that faileth not, where no thief approaches, neither moth corrupteth. For where your treasure is, there will your heart be. Isn't that a beautiful scripture? Beautiful book of St. Luke, the entire book in Gullah. And you know, like I said, Gullah is the mother tongue of the African people. And I have a little story for you. And it is called The Little Red Teacup, an original story. And it ends with strings. Once upon a time, there was a potter who made beautiful plates and bowls on his potter's wheel. The potter was always pleased with the way his dishes turned out, and many people from all over came to buy his beautiful work. One day, a little girl entered into his shop. She was poorly dressed and looked as if she hadn't eaten in days. She said to the potter, "Kind sir, my mother is very ill and cannot afford a doctor, and we do not have anything to eat. Will you please help us if you can?" At once the potter's heart was moved with pity for this poor child. He took some coins and put them in a bag for the little girl and some bread that he had gotten from the baker's shop. That morning, along with some milk in a covered pail, he wrapped the bread and tied it up nicely, and the pail's handle she could swing in her small hands. But first, he invited the little girl to sit and have some bread and milk before she got on the road. He put the bread on a beautiful little plate that seemed to be made just for the little girl. It had running, laughing children being chased by two small puppies. The little girl ate the bread quickly so she could admire the plate. The milk was placed in a small, plain teacup with no handle. The cup sat on a plain little plate. The girl cradled the cup in both of her hands as she slowly drank the cold, delicious milk. She then put the coins in the big pocket of her shabby dress, held the bread by a string in one hand, and took the covered pail of cold milk in the other hand. She thanked the potter for all that he had done. He gave her his blessings for a safe trip home, and told her to come again if need be. She waved goodbye and started off down the road. The potter turned to clear the table of the small plain cup and plate, but in its place sat a beautiful red teacup with a heart in the bottom and words that said, "Love is the way." The plain little plate underneath had also turned bright red and was covered with small glittering golden hearts. The potter's foot kicked something as he turned, and when he looked, there lay a red cloth bag. The potter picked up the heavy little bag and opened it only to find it filled to the top with glistening golden coins. Now he really could help the poor. He began to wonder if the little girl was really an angel in disguise. He took the little red cup and plate and put it in a place where all who came in could see. And everyone that saw the little cup and plate said they had never seen anything quite like it. The potter had to agree, for try, as hard as he could never quite make another red cup like the one that sat on his table that day. And every child that hears this story longs to see the teacup in its glory. So you know what? I've got what I made is some string. I can't do it very well, but I did the best I could. So this was a story about the teacup. So here what we have is the string, and I'm going to take my right index finger and pull this side all the way over, and then I'm going to take my left index finger and pull this over, and here we have these strings. And what I'm going to do is take my thumb and bring this string up and bring this string up, and then I'm going to kind of help myself out a little bit by doing this, and there we have the teacup. And now the little teacup that the little girl brought was even so much more beautiful. And here we've got a beautiful teacup that was made with love. And so I hope you like that story. And I got another one for you. And this story is called Pinderella. No, not Cinderella. Pinderella. Okay. It says, way down on the old plantation, there was the biggest, whitest house you ever did see. And this house was known as the White House. Now in this house lived Martha Jack and Mrs. Alice and two pretty little girls by the names of Mrs. Susie and Mrs. Sally. Martha and Mrs. had lots of slaves to work the fields of corn and cotton and potatoes and rice and all the other things that grow on the plantation. Now these slaves, they worked from sun up to sundown in the heat of the day. Most time you could hear them singing for miles. Oh, one of these days, I go and lay my burden down. One of these days, go and lay my burden down. Sometime up, sometime down, sometime I'm almost to the ground. But one of these days, go and lay my burden down. But now let's get back to the big house. Mrs. had a house girl by the name of Glorious. She tended to Mrs. Susie and Mrs. Sally, and she tended to the Pinderfields. Martha decided that that would be her only job, and that was a great big job now to tend to the Pinderfields. Pinder flowers grew green and plentiful and made good food for the rabbits and the deer, and they would come and get a bellyful and go home satisfied. But now Martha didn't want the rabbit and deer and other creatures to eat up his Pinder flowers before their time. So Glorious had to keep watch to see that the rabbits and deer and other creatures didn't eat up Martha Pinder flowers, because Mrs. Sally and Mrs. Susie was quite fond of Pinders. Oh, especially during the winter, around the fire, Glorious watched the Pinder flowers by day And old Mose, who was too old to do anything else, watched the pinder flowers by night. You see, Glorious used to make pinders for Susie and Sally. And when he made them pinders were so good, Susie and Sally would kick their feet and giggle and wiggle. And now Martha was telling Glorious she would have to go and watch the pinder fields and leave Susie and Sally. She sure didn't want to go, but he had to do what Martha said. So he went down to the pinder fields, and on this very first day, when he get there, the skies was a little dark. A little wind was a-blowing. A little bit of rain was coming down. Glorious looked down the pinder fields, and it was coming, an old woman coming down the road, and that's what they called a woman back in those days. And the old woman come up the road, been an ugly old woman. He's so ugly when they get up and the rabbit them run across the road scared of him. But Glorious didn't think he'd been ugly, because Glorious thought everybody been beautiful from the inside out. And the old woman come up to him and he said in Gullah language, he said, Glorious. He said, I know your name. He said, but you know, I is weary and the rain about to come. Can I rest neath your shelter? And of course, Glorious had a kind heart and open hand. She said to the old lady, come under. And as soon as the old lady got under the shelter, she began to sing a song. Rain, rain, beat my door. Rain, go away, don't beat no more. Got to get on down the road. Got to ease my heavy load. And you know what? The rain stopped. And the old lady went away down the road. Now, the next day, about the same time, the skies grew dark. The wind been blowing a little bit. The rain been falling a little bit. And who coming down that field? That old woman. That ugly old woman, he come down there. He said, gal, he said, the weather come up again today. Can I rest neath your shelter? Gloria said, come under. And as soon as they get under there, that rain come down. And the old woman start to sing that song. Rain, rain, beat my door. Rain, go away, don't beat no more. Got to get on down the road. Got to ease my heavy load. And the rain stopped. And the old woman went away down the road. Down the next day, about the same time. The skies grew a little dark, the wind blew just a little bit, and a little rain coming down. Who coming down that road? You know that by now. That old woman. He come down the road and he said, child, he said, can I rest neath your shelter? And Glorious, of course, said, come under. And as soon as she got under, the rains came down. That old lady began to sing that song that we all should know by now. Rain, rain, beat my door. Rain, go away, don't beat no more. Got to get on down the road. Got to ease my heavy load. And the rain stopped. But the old woman did not go down the road this day. He said, child, you've been so good to me. You've been so kind to me. He said, what do you want more than anything else while you're on the land? And Glorious thought about it. More than anything else, she really wanted to make people happy. She wanted to make those pinders that everybody could enjoy, and she wanted to go back and make those pinders for Susie and Sally. And she told that to the old lady, and she said, child, 4 days clean. He says, you was going to get your wish. He said, now you ain't going to see me come down this road no more. He said, but go ahead and be happy. And the old lady made her way down the road. Glorious began to wonder how in the world was she going to know something before day clean, which was before daylight. She lived in the old cabin back of the field. And just before daylight, there was a knock on the door. It was Massa Jack. He said, Glorious, he said, I need you back for the big house. I want you to make pinders for Susie and Sally. They miss you so much. And most of all, I want you to make pinders for everybody that come on the plantation. And Glorious was the happiest person that there ever was. She went back to the big house. She made pinders for Susie and Sally. They giggled and wiggled and kicked their feet. She made pinders for everyone that came on the old plantation to see Martha Jack and Mrs. Alice. And you will know what them and the best pinders they say that they ever tasted. Now I bet you can't tell me what a pinder is. Well, I gonna tell you, a pinder is a peanut. And from that day to this day here, Gloria's name was changed from Glorious to Pinderella. Yes, sir. That's why I said it was changed to Pinderella. And that's the story of Pinderella. Like I said, Gullah is the mother tongue of the African people. Sometimes when the Gullahs came over from Africa, they came from various tribes or communities, and they all had different dialects like Fandango, Mende, Yoruba, Gula, couldn't understand each other. And when they got to Moss's plantation and the Mosses spoke English, oh, that was another thing then. They really had a hard time learning. But what they would do is borrow from the English spoken by Mosses and his other people on the plantation, mix it with their dialects, and then Gullah became prevalent here in what we call the Low Country. So now, my great-grandmother was a Gullah woman. The Gullahs would take off that W and add another O. She was known as a Gullah woman. She wore the long dresses such as I have on. She always wore some type of a headdress. She always wore aprons, but all of her aprons had little holes all over them. And the reason those aprons had those little holes all over them, my great-grandmother smoked a corncob pipe. So she would drop fire on her aprons. Now, we lived in an area called North Santee. And early in the mornings, my great-grandmother would take her walks. Sometimes she would have to take me along because the rest of my family members would be in the cotton fields picking cotton. And I was too young to pick cotton. So when my great-grandmother learned that she was going to have to take me on her walks, she grumbled, which meant she complained, because she said I walked too slow. So as we got to walking, she was ahead, smoking her pipe and humming her tune, and she would look back. Sure enough, she would stop, and she would say that I was walking too slow, and she would have to scold me. So she scolded me in a Gullah town. She spoke fluent Gullah whenever she wanted to. So she would say, "Come on, girl, hurry up, let's go." That was Gullah, and I understood that. Now, I loved being with my great-grandmother, and even though she died while I was still young, my great-grandmother lived to be 117 years old. So then I went to live with my grandmother, her daughter, and my grandmother was also a Gullah woman. Wore the same type clothing, the long dresses, the headdress, the apron. She smoked the pipe and everything, but my grandmother was very strict and very religious. So every night at my grandmother's house, we would have to have devotions. Devotions consisted of her reading to me from a big black Bible. She later bought me a Bible story book for children so that we could read to each other, because I could read. After we got done with our readings, we would have to kneel beside the old bed and say our prayers. And after we said our prayers, we would have to do what you call a curtsy, but the Gullahs called it a kutchie. So we had to do a kutchie for the Lord to give him thanks for allowing us to live through another day. And then my grandmother would always close us out with one of her favorite tunes. Every time I feel the Spirit moving in my heart, I will pray. Every time I feel the Spirit moving in my heart, I will pray. Up on the mountain, my Lord spoke, out of his mouth come fire and smoke. I look all around me, and around me shine. I ask the Lord if all this mine. Every time I feel the Spirit moving in my heart, I will pray. Every time I feel the Spirit moving in my heart, moving in my heart, moving in my heart, I will pray. Now, I have a poem for you, and it's called My Secret Corner. I have a secret corner where I go to pray. It is where I talk to Jesus all times, night and day. I like to get real quiet and pretend he holds me near. He wraps his arms around me. He is blessed that I am there. He covers me with his feathers, and under his shadow I abide. He whispers that he loves me. Sometimes I have to cry. I tell him about my troubles. He listens to my woes. He says my joys will become doubles. He says that he will open doors. He says he will give me peace that no one can understand if I just humble myself and hold on to his hand. Yes, in my secret corner, it's just Jesus and just me. It's the only time being a loner gives me such company. I tell him about the virus. He tells me that he knows. He says if I just trust him, he goes where the virus goes. Whenever I leave the secret place, I am better for it still. To leave his calm and sweet embrace means I'm blessed to do his will. You should have a secret corner where you can go to pray, someplace to talk to Jesus all times, night and day. And it's so good being in that secret corner. And I hope when you get your secret corner that you'll have a blessed time too.